Hello everyone and welcome to the YouTube channel. I benched 170 kilos. I did it.
Pow!
Oh! Alright, baby, we did it! Yeah!
I'm freaking out, man.
You are freaking out, man.
I have big plans for the bench press this year. I plan on surpassing my 1 rep max, which is 150 kilos I got late last year. And I want to beat that. I want to get 150 for reps. And I of course want to lift heavier. I want to lift 160, 170. Definitely 170 I have my sights on for 1 rep max.
Ready, fight.
It's been decided how we lose, 'cause there's a fire under the altar. I keep on lying to, I keep on lying to, already pulling me in, already under my skin, and I know exactly how this ends. I let you cut me open just to watch me bleed. Gave up who I am for who you wanted me to be. Don't know why I'm hoping for what I won't receive. Falling for the promise of the emptiness machine.
I'm absolutely buzzing. To be honest, I'm still in a little disbelief because I set this target at the start of the year. I was kind of pulling that figure out of my ass because at the start of the year, my bench press max was 150 kilos. I just said 170 as like a means to aim high, but didn't realize how high I was aiming until I started getting stuck into it. And about halfway through the year, I realized, oh shit, I don't know if I'm gonna get this. So to have lifted 170 kilos is unbelievable. And in this video, we're gonna go over everything I did and everything to consider with the hopes of helping you increase your strength on any lift, but more specifically, increase your strength when it comes to the bench press. Now, I think this goes without saying, this is not a video on how to bench press 170 kilos because that weight is relative to me. It's going to help you increase your bench from whatever it is to hopefully just get it up 5, 10, 15, 20 kilos, whatever it is. The goal is not to bench 170 because that would be complete BS. I hate when people make videos like that. It's disingenuous. Another thing I should mention, and I think it goes without saying, I'm not an expert on benching. I'm not a powerlifter. I'm
I'm a dude playing a dude disguised as another dude.
What?
I should also say that I'm a natural lifter. I think that is going to be obvious to a lot of people, but I'm saying this for the reason being that lifting 170 kilos without ever touching steroids, I think that's incredible. And most of you watching, you will never touch steroids. You haven't touched steroids, you never will. So it's really cool to know that you can do something like this without touching the stuff. So with all that out of the way, let's get into the video. Number one, what's super relevant here is my training age and experience. I am now 27. I've been lifting weights since I was 14 years old. It hasn't always been perfect. I haven't always been consistent, but I've been doing it since then. I've created a very wide base. I have good foundations set in stone. And because I've been lifting for such a long time, if someone gives me a new technique or if I get given a new exercise, I will learn that movement and be a lot more efficient at performing it compared to someone who has less training experience than me. So that is very relevant to me benching 170 because really it started from the beginning of my training journey, okay? The next thing is I started bulking this year. I got bigger. If you get bigger, it will help increase your chances of lifting more weight. Whether that be fat tissue, although fat tissue, not ideal, but I have gained more fat tissue this year, but I've also gotten more muscle on my frame. Christmas time when my max was 150 kilos, I was around 90 kilograms. Now I'm sitting around 98.5 kilograms and my max is now 170. Would I have gotten 170 if I remained at 90 kilograms? I don't think so. I don't think it would have happened this year. To give you an example of this, last summer I bench pressed for the first time after not have been benching for like 5-6 years. My max bench press 5-6 years ago was 125 kilos. I'll put it up here, and it is not pretty. Now, since that, I stopped benching because I was running into issues with my shoulder. Nothing to do with the bench press. It was all to do with me and how I was performing the movement and maybe certain imbalances I had. But I hadn't been benching for like 6 years. I just went dumbbell pressing and doing dips, which will have some carryover to your bench press strength. But in that 6 years of not benching, I was still lifting and I was getting bigger. I put more muscle on my frame. So last summer, when I touched the bench for the first time, I put 130 kilos on the bar after doing warm-up sets, of course, and I benched 130 for 3. I hadn't been benching up until that point, okay? So that proves my point. Get bigger everywhere, get stronger everywhere, and you will increase your chances of lifting heavier with any movement you're doing. So that's point number 2. Point number 3, it's similar to point number 2, but I'm bulking. Not only have I gotten bigger, I have more energy in the tank. If you are bulking, you're in a caloric surplus, you have more energy to push harder or lift heavier. Number 4, I went and got expert help. I reached out to a guy called Tristan Jacobs, TJ Pain Free is his handle on social media. And I definitely wouldn't have got the 170 without his help. I've trained like a bodybuilder for the last decade. TJ is a powerlifter and a powerlifting coach. While both involve lifting weights, they're very, very different. So I wanted to give myself the best possible chance at achieving this lift and getting it in a time efficient manner. The best way to do that is to reach out to someone who's an expert at this thing or who has done the thing you want to do and ask them for help, get coaching off them. TJ programmed my sets and reps for the bench press. He helped me with my technique. He tweaked a few things, which I'll get into. And he gave me some accessory movements, which I never would have done, which also helped me with the bench press. So if you're serious about something, seek out expert advice. The next thing is to do your research. People have benched 170, people have benched 200, more than 200. There's people out there who are very smart, who are more experienced, who put out information online for free for you to go and check out. You just have to look for it, okay? A lot of the time, people on social media, they can be a bit lazy in the sense that they want to know the answers for everything without actually doing any work themselves. So a lot of the time, you will get information online and people will help you, but you have to go and try it for yourself to see if it actually works or not. And a lot of the time, people don't want to do that. They just want the answers given to them by whatever influencer or content creator they follow. But it is important to do your own research and try things out and see if they work for you. And YouTube was brilliant for me. Jeff Nippard, I watched one of his videos. He was coaching his client to a 4-plate bench press, which is like 180 kilograms. That's huge. And a tip I picked up from watching that video was I took my elbows on the way down and so did his client, but he said, as you press up, think about flaring your elbows. So doing this on the way back up. I found that interesting, started applying it, really liked it, and that would have contributed to me benching 170. Technique. Now, this video, I will do a whole video on technique by itself because there's so much to cover here. If you want to view it this way, it can be as simple as take it off, bring it down, push it back up. But that's not what happened. I changed my technique. Like I said, I went to Tristan. He tweaked some things. I'll give you just the summary. I would have created the arch, not a crazy arch, not the shit you see some powerlifters do where it's like they look like a bridge. It was just a slight arch. I did go with a wider grip. That was to reduce range of motion and also help keep tension and keep tightness of the shoulder blades back and down. I utilized leg drive, I braced. I did a lot of things with my technique. I learned a lot when it comes to bench press technique this year that I applied to my training. I could go into it a lot more, but the video would be really long. And like I said, I'll go into it in a separate video and we'll go in on the detail and cover everything regarding technique. When it comes to technique, bear in mind that if you tweak something in your technique, it will not feel good straight away. For the first 2 to 3 weeks after I'd seen TJ and I started implementing his new technique he had for me, I was cursing his name. I told him this. It wasn't going well for me. I didn't like it. I felt like it set me back like 5 steps. But in the short term, it probably will set you back in order to propel you forward long term, which it did exactly that. But just be mindful.
Very demure, very mindful.
That it will not be comfortable or very efficient in the beginning, because you have to learn a new way of moving. Anything you do for the first time, you're never going to be good at it. It's the same with tweaking your technique when it comes to any given lift. Next up is frequency. I went from benching at the start of the year once a week to twice a week. And that was on TJ's recommendation. He actually recommended I bench 3 times a week. But the first week, I think it was 1 or 2 weeks of doing that, I was like, no way. I'm not doing this 3 times a week, because I really wasn't enjoying benching 3 times. Now, moving a lift to twice a week was plenty for me, and I hadn't done that since I don't know how long. I've always just done the lift once in the week. That's been it. I repeat the lift again once the following week. So doing a lift twice a week was pretty new concept to me. I wasn't used to doing that. So doing it twice a week for me was enough to get the job done. Could I have got my bench press goal faster if I bench 3 times a week? Potentially. Powerlifters generally recommend that you want to do that lift 2 to 3 times a week at least, because it's a skill. And like any skill, let's say learn how to play soccer, the more you expose yourself to it, the more you practice it, the better you will get. The more you expose yourself to benching, the better you will get at it. I like to train really hard, and benching 3 times a week just did not feel good for me, because I like to train really hard. If you're someone who is very quite disciplined in leaving reps in the tank, or maybe you're someone who just doesn't train that hard and you want to improve your bench, then 2-3 times a week, maybe even 4 times a week might be a good shout for you. This is where it depends on the individual. In regards to those 2 bench sessions, I started both of those sessions with the bench press. One of the sessions was a more close grip bench press. When I say close grip, this was my standard bench press grip all along, was this grip. It's always been comfortable for me, and it really engages my chest. I don't really feel my triceps working, even though technically this is a more tricep dominant way of benching. And the following session, I would bring my grip out a little bit wider. Not crazy wide, because that just never felt comfortable to me, but wider than what I was used to. So I utilized 2 different grips. You could argue that that's better or worse. If you stuck with the same grip, you might get better at that movement pattern, even faster again. My mouth is so dry. The next thing is leaving reps in the tank. Now, this is something that is an alien concept to me, because I've been training like a bodybuilder for the last decade. I'm used to training very close to failure and not leaving a lot of reps in the tank, because I want to grow muscle. Now, when it comes to gaining strength on a movement, that is not the best idea. You will want to leave some reps in the tank, and that was very hard for me to do, but I got better at it, and I saw the rationale behind it. I could leave reps in the tank, but still progress and not be very fatigued for the next session. If I was constantly trying to go to failure, then I don't know if benching twice a week would have worked out. So if you leave reps in the tank and still aim to progress, you can get stronger without the high cost of fatigue. And that will allow you to bench more frequently, which will help you get better at benching again. Next up, consistency. You hear it with every goal, but we have to touch on consistency. I wasn't perfect in my approach, but I was very, very consistent. I benched twice a week. I stuck to the same training days, Wednesday and a Saturday. Bench first, stuck with the same technique. I did my warm-up sets, and I performed my warm-up sets like they were practice sets. I think practice sets might be a better name for warm-up sets, because a lot of time people, let's say, will use the bench. They're doing their warm-up sets. They grab an empty bar and it's just like hitting the spam button, doing that. But it's like, you're not really training the same movement pattern you're about to do. So the same, whatever way I would bench, I would perform my warm-up sets the same way, and it was more about building up the weight and getting used to telling my body this is the movement pattern I want you to perform without doing a lot of reps, so I'm not fatigued before going into my working sets. So with a warm-up set, think practice good technique, and think stimulate, not annihilate your muscles. I was consistent across the board. You have to be. In order to achieve anything, you need to keep showing up and doing all the things you need to be doing. Next thing we need to touch on is believing in yourself and trusting the process. A lot of the time when we get clients coming in here, we get them lifting weights they never lifted before. And a lot of the time, it's not even down to the programming or expertise in coaching. It's just the fact that we believe in that person. We know they can do that lift. They never would have tried that themselves. Now that's also a thing of feeling more safe to do it in this environment. But it's also that a lot of people just don't believe they can do a lot of these things. In saying that, I did have my doubts. I had my doubts maybe in the last few months because 170 seemed, I had no idea, at the start of the year, I had no idea where I was at in terms of 170, but as I started benching and progressing, I was like, oh shit, maybe 170 is out of my reach, because I had failed. The first time I tried 160, I failed it, and that was my first time, I think, a few months into the year, I attempted 160, I failed it. And then the next time I tried it, I failed it. And then the third time I got it, which I was super happy about, that I benched 160, but I was like, damn, I failed 160 twice, is 170 even possible? So then I set my sights on, okay, we need to get 165 out of the way. And then I tried working my way up to 165, and then 165, when I failed it the first time, I was all over the place. Like, it did not feel steady at all. It felt, I'll throw it up here, it felt very shaky. I was like, shit, maybe 170 is very far away. And a month or two, I might have attempted 165 again. Now I failed it, but it was a little bit more comfortable. So I was like, okay, at this point, this was like 2 months ago, maybe 3 months ago. I said, okay, 170 is probably not going to happen this year, but I will work my ass off to get 165, and I would have been happy with 165. That would have been a 15 kilo increase on top of my max, which I would have been delighted with. It wasn't 170, but like I said at the start of the video, I kind of pulled 170 out of my ass. It was a nice number, but I started thinking in the last few months that it just wasn't realistic. However, even thinking that, I was just like, do you know what? Forget about the 170 and just stick to the process. Stick to the thing you've been doing that's been working, that's been helping you progress, and forget about the 170. And lo and behold, at the weekend, I didn't go in with the intention of benching 170, but I was just feeling out the warm-up sets. I worked up to 160, benched it for the third time this year, and it went up very easy. I was like, shit, today's the day I'm going to do 165. So I gave myself 3-4 minutes, went to the toilet, came back, got in the zone, and unracked 165, benched it, and the 165 went up easier than the 160. Well, maybe not easier, but regardless, it went up. I was so happy. I was like, finally, got the 165. And usually I would leave it there. I was like, you know what? End on a high. But I wanted to I was feeling good. And I was like, you know what? I'll try 170 and see where I'm at with the lift. Like, at what point will I fail? How comfortable does it feel? What's it going to feel like in my hands? Took it out and benched it, and I couldn't believe it, because I genuinely wasn't expecting to bench 170 this year. But that's my point. I forgot about the outcome, and I just became obsessed with the process. Too often people are thinking about the end result, and they're not focusing on the things they need to be doing to achieve that in the first place. It seems obvious, but people definitely fall into that trap a lot of the time. Next thing to touch on is your relationship with failing. I kind of touched on it there, but I mentioned I had failed like 160 twice before I got it. I failed 165 twice before I got it. I viewed failure as feedback, and I never let it get me down, or I never attached my value to failing. Like someone watching this, you might be scared to fail a lift. in the fear of embarrassing yourself or just thinking you're not good enough. That I never viewed it that way. Failure is, I didn't make a big deal of it. If I failed a lift, it was like, okay, shit. You don't like failing, but it is what it is. I took it as feedback, or I took it as I just wasn't ready for it at that point in time, or it wasn't feeling very strong in the day. So it's important. Your relationship with failure is quite important, because you're going to fail. If you're trying something like this, if you're trying to increase your strength in a lift or lift a new weight, you're probably not going to get it the first time, and that's okay. It doesn't mean you stop trying. It doesn't mean you're not good enough. Keep trying. Go back to the drawing board. Figure things out. Change a few things. Tweak a few things. Try again. When training is a part of your lifestyle and not your whole life, it will just be so much more enjoyable and sustainable. If you become so fixated on just training, imagine if I made training my whole life and I came in here and I had a bad day benching. I'd be like a lunatic. I'd be throwing my toys out of the pram. I'd be like in a bad mood, or the people around me. Not good.
You can do it. I don't like this crap. Yeah. This is very
You're gonna be going to the grocery store.
Benching.
It's good for me. Never see this face again.
That's not good. Trust me when I say it. Make training a part of your life and not your whole life, and your results will be 10 times better. Last point, if you're going for a max effort, have someone with you. Now, I didn't always apply this to myself, but that's silly. Have someone with you because number one, you want to be safe. Don't be the idiot that tries a max and doesn't have someone there, and the bar ends up coming down, crushing you, and you look like an ass, and then you're traumatized and you don't try and do this again, okay? Have someone there with you. The other reason why you want someone there with you is to help you unrack the bar so you can help keep your position. Keeping your position on the bench is quite important, and unracking a heavy ass bar out for a max effort, that can be more challenging than the lift itself sometimes. I hope you found this video useful. It's time for me to go train, and I'll see you in the next video.